Achewillow, Season 6, Chapter 4, Trauma, New and Old. The human body is a remarkable machine. A biological balancing act like a million circuses with hundreds of performers each, all putting on a simultaneous performance all at once. Statistically, it's inevitable that there will always be acrobats who miss a step, tumbling to their doom. If all goes well, the show keeps going on. Some tents go dark and fold, replaced by others, old performances leaving room for new spectacles. As long as a majority of the performers keep walking their tightrope, jumping through their hoops, and grabbing onto the next trapeze, all goes well. Evolution has gifted us systems to keep the show going, specialized means of information, like carnival barkers, each with their own voice. Pain warns of damage to the body. Thirst demands hydration. My favorite, hunger, is the purchase order for building materials, the fuel gauge ringing near empty. We feel pressure when our various waste requirements need attending. We can even keep track of the exact position of each of our limbs without looking. Knowing, as I do, as Olivia does, that magic is a real thing, would it then be so odd to think that there might be a sense for it? Does the show have a need to be aware of magic? After all, what's a good circus without a magical act? If there is such a sense, it is in serious need of work on my part. My great-grandaunt lived to over 100 years of age, cooking with magic the whole time. She did it with skill and intent, and I have no doubt that she could tell when her palmiers were laced with enchantment or not. I'm sure she would have known with but a brief glance at the people in the streets of Achewillow that they were under a spell. Well, now I feel stupid, I say, leaning on the counter with my elbow. I'm angry, but I'm not mad. A simmer makes for a much richer sauce than a boil. For that reason, I'm not sure the quiet frustration is necessarily equal or better than my habit of blowing up at Ophelia. But you aren't, girl. That's the important part. Like how you feel when you get spooked and you're sure you're going to have a heart attack? That's fine, as long as you don't. She breaks another biscotti in half, nibbling on the end, pulling out an almond sliver with her teeth. That's it? That's your folksy wisdom? On 1 cup of coffee? That's as good as it gets. She pushes her cup in my direction without looking, too busy watching over Nisha. The girl is still playing with her toys, voice so low as to be inaudible. She serves little pieces of chocolatin on plastic dishes, stopping only to sip from her orange juice. She's a very good host, making sure everyone gets an even share, serving all the guests before seating herself and engaging in conversation. In her place at that age, I'd have already stolen everyone's chocolate croissant to stuff my face. Besides, Olivia continues as I warm her cup, I ain't wrong. Feel as dumb as you want for missing the signs, but no one trained you for this. You feel mighty for having a couple years of experience? I was spiking my coffee with whiskey in this cafe before you were born. When I was your age, I was helping Doris measure out flour and sugar. I had a summer job in this place while in college. Feel stupid for lack of experience all you want, Miriam Dufour, as long as you aren't when it counts. I fold my arms on the countertop, resting my head in the nest they make, like an enormous egg. You and Doris got up to some mischief in your day, didn't you? Olivia twists her stool to put her back and shoulders on the counter. She settles, warm cup of coffee in one hand and biscuit in the other, like a conductor's baton, ready to direct an orchestra. Except, she's getting ready to tell a story. We sure did. Don't think we were buddies like you and that blonde girl. Doris was as much older than me then as I am to you now. Didn't stop us from solving a few mysteries. Like this one time, the bank got held up. Detective Lamore could not figure it out. See, security camera footage wasn't great, and not everyone had cell phones with cameras. Between the two of us, we narrowed it down to a handful of locals, people who were suspiciously spending more money than they had. Doris baked each of them a little something special, some food she knew they enjoyed. She said that there was a little of her own guilt in those cupcakes, brownies, and cookies. It sounds uneventful, but that's how Doris operated. A few days later, Joel Barrington's wife turned him in after he confessed to her. Story is, he cried for days, begging for forgiveness from everyone. Didn't stop him from going to prison for a solid 5 years. I don't know what I was hoping for. More adventure and more shenanigans would have been more entertaining. I'm not even sure I see a lesson in this story. Where's the story of Henry and the vampires? How did Achewillow wind up with a hunger demon stalking the night? Looking up above the register, what about Philomene Dufour? Oh, there was something else, Olivia adds, studying the biscotti with renewed curiosity. Milton McCormick lost his wife during the whole ordeal. Mr. McCormick, the butcher? Mm-hmm. He had an almond cookie with his coffee that day, and when he got home, admitted to having an affair with his partner. You know, we should do something with apples in these biscotti. The suggestion falls on deaf ears. I've given up hope someone else will come in today. The scarves have won over my caramel palmier. My samples were enchanted by accident, and that magic is no match for Ophelia's. That fact is like a ghost pepper. It hurts 2 ways. Having to omit Ophelia is right, that I'm not as skilled as she is, burns terribly. But how she was right a second time, rubbing my face in that accidental enchantment, that's what will give me heartburn for the next few days. So Doris didn't always get it right? I ask, seeking comfort in others' mistakes. No, not always. Almost never when she tried to do the real flashy stuff. Doris was better at the small things, the little magics that have a big impact. McCormick never got a divorce, you know. I thought you said his wife left him. She did, and she came back. And that, too, was Doris. She could have done something like a love potion or a soup that erases memories. She was powerful enough. What she did was trickier. I watched Nisha play some more, having abandoned rubbing salt into my own wounds. She's an odd kid. Reminds me of myself at that age. Quiet and reserved, she looks capable of building whole worlds for herself, perfectly content in the company of her own imagination. Her dreams must be something else. Her attention to detail brings a smile to my lips, almost making me forget about my failed opening. The chocolatin is gone except for a few crumbs around her stuffed animals' mouths and a smear of chocolate on her doll's face. It gives the illusion that the toys really did feast upon their fare. Doris enchanted them with honesty, Olivia continues. Not intent on fixing her mistake for her own sake. Rather, she wanted to offer Milton and his wife the best chance at happiness, with or without each other. That is what made Doris formidable. What a word that is, formidable. Where I used to think it quite the compliment, it hangs from the neck of Doris's corpse like a stone, something I should dig out of her grave and press against my own chest. But even that doesn't stir me from my contemplation. Nisha's game draws me in, and I fantasize about being the silk-furred bear at her table, having my own dessert served back to me. Escapism, like cookie dough, hits differently when raw. I'm about to get up and offer little Nisha some more food for her tea party, perhaps even some herbal tea while I'm at it, something without caffeine. My hand is stayed when the little girl does something unexpected. Like a man taking off his hat to give a polite salute, Nisha reaches up and pulls at the top of her hair. The curls lift with little resistance, revealing a clean, smooth scalp. Absent-mindedly, she scratches her skull in a few places before dropping her hair back into place. It's a little askew, but Nisha is quick to pull and tug until it looks like nothing happened. Concern summons a frown, and I point, rather rudely, I must admit, at the little girl in my coffee shop. She doesn't notice, but Olivia does, reading the question from my mute, open mouth. "Leukemia," she whispers. "Anais once told me the whole thing's name, but I'll be damned if I can remember it. I'm sure I'll have time to familiarize myself with all sorts of cancers as I get older, but that's something no kid should have to know about." Just as I was daydreaming about being Nisha, or being part of her game, I'm slapped with a horrible truth, and it feels like a wet towel to the face. Is she going to be okay? An optimistic question. After all, she must be undergoing some sort of treatment. I hear Olivia sigh and take a breath. I hope to hear a familiar from her any second. "No," is what I get instead. "Something about not responding to treatment. If you want all the details, you can ask Anais yourself, but I'd rather you didn't." I won't. Why would I need to know the finer points of their tragedy? A special case is what Olivia called her, and I can understand better why. Neither she nor her mom is deserving of something as limp as pity, but it's a struggle to feel anything else. Melancholy sweeps through me like a flash fever, intruding on my thoughts in a near debilitating wave. I feel useless, which is, for the record, far worse than feeling helpless. At least, when helpless, the only victim is me. There is a ray of sunshine, however. Quite literally. As the sun begins to set, sailing low on the afternoon horizon, it manages to tear through the cloud cover over Achewillow. When was the last time we had sun in town? Ever since I closed the cafe, it's like the cloud that always hangs overhead had extended to cover the entire area. An angry goddess pouting in frustration at being denied. At least my croissants still get the job done. Anais came back to pick her daughter up. It was tempting to waive the cost of orange juice and chocolatin, a little thing to do on my part. Or was it so I could feel like I helped? A balm over my conscience, keeping it from aching with that damnable pity. I settled for the next best thing and offered that she could leave Nisha at the cafe any time. As long as the girl was always this well behaved and she didn't tell any other parents about it, the arrangement could be our little secret. No fool, I suspect that she saw through my offer. A slight pull of her brow as she tried to see through me. I think the convenience outweighed the slight to her pride. "You didn't spoil your dinner, did you?" the mother asks the child. Nisha looks almost confused, as if the question was ridiculous and out of place. "I didn't eat anything," she claims, her voice light but serious. "Séraphin ate most of the chocolatin. He only left a little bit for Barbat and Julien. I did drink all of my juice, though." Séraphin, Barbat, and Julien. Fine names for two plush toys and a doll. "It's true," I say. "I saw her give the whole chocolatin to her guests, but the orange juice she polished off herself. She's a fine host, your daughter." Anais offers a tired smile as thanks, helping Nisha stuff all her dishes and friends back into her bag. I feel like she's about to say something else, to offer some advice or issue a warning, but it comes too late. "You saw them!" Nisha cries with excitement. "See, Mama? I told you. That's why I need 3 cookies after dinner, or else there's not enough for everyone. Tell her, Ms. Achewillow." The mother's smile remains, but it's now overshadowed by a look of, "See what you've done?" The quiet admonishment is registered, but I gladly ignore it. I crouch to sit on the ball of my feet, tugging at my apron so it doesn't drag on the floor. Meeting Nisha's eyes, I give her a wink and a grin. "Ms. Achewillow is my mother's name. You can just call me Miriam." With a grunt, Anais picks up her daughter, holding her in one arm while fishing in her pocket for a set of car keys. Nisha, all the while, accuses me with her eyes, as if she caught me in a lie of some sort. She knows your name's not really Ms. Achewillow. She was just making a joke, weren't you, Nini? Now say thank you. I almost didn't bother opening the next day. On that topic, the night was a divided council. The more I dwelled on the matter, the more it became clear that this was no longer the annoying passive aggression I'd gotten somewhat used to. Backhanded compliments and schoolyard insults had become insufficient for Ophelia's purpose. Not content with embarrassing me, seducing my friend away, she now stabbed at my livelihood with those knitting needles of hers. More than a way of making a living, the Achewillow is also an heirloom, a connection to part of my family I didn't even know I had, and, more significantly, the crust into which I'd poured the filling of my whole life. What was the reinvented Miriam Dufour without the Achewillow Cafe? I'm under attack, pure and simple, and the notion of it kept me from slumber's grasp. Would Ophelia's spell keep the townsfolk from visiting the cafe on opening day also? Was there any magic in my limited arsenal that I could muster in defense? Or perhaps even as a counterattack? Exhausted before even rising, I went through the motions. Everything feeling familiar, despite the ominous cloud hanging over this important day. For weeks, I was asked, when will the Achewillow Cafe reopen? But on the morning I had the answer, would anyone care? In darkness I wake, and in darkness I feed the macaron sprite. I put on freshly washed jeans and a brand new sweatshirt. Not that anyone will notice these details, not under the apron, but it feels right to dress up for the occasion. In darkness, I walk down the stairs, and in darkness, I unlock the door, flipping on the dining room lights at last. The bulbs flicker a little, an echo of my trembling stomach. Fear and trepidation using my mind as a dance floor. Every shadow at the door, every reflection in the window, I imagine seeing a faceless member of the community looking in, staring for a moment, adjusting their scarves and going away. The ritual of preparation for the day comes back easily. Like riding a bicycle or making pancakes, you never forget how it's done. Croissants prepared the previous evening go into the oven. Marinated chicken is paired with vegetables and some crumbled goat cheese, then wrapped in homemade tortillas. I pull out a plastic tub full of madeleines and drizzle fresh butterscotch caramel atop peanut butter brownies. Not only is everything here delicious, but the presentation is second to none. Candied fruits decorate oatmeal and carrot muffins. Fresh mint leaves and hazelnuts adorn the top of chocolate medallions. Meringues the color of fantasy clouds, marbled like zebras, are arranged in a rainbow pattern. I want the first customer to feel guilty for ruining this spectacle, but also be unable to resist. Only once the display is full do I start grinding the coffee beans. It's quite the workout, turning the Colombian roast into the fine grounds that will soon become the best coffee in town. The sights, the aromas, even my choice of playlist, a collection of gentle but lively acoustic melodies for the morning crowd, followed by animated folk in the early afternoon, and capped by acid jazz and chill hop in the evening, has been selected carefully. We're back, I want this day to scream into Achewillow. But beyond that, I want it known that Miriam Dufour hasn't only opened the kitchen back up, but that she's doing better than ever. Rich butter, salty and creamy, floats invisible up to my nostrils as I finish packing 2 boxes of croissants. As if noticing my effort, the clouds part, inviting the morning sun to cast itself low over the horizon and into the front window of the Achewillow. I have no magic to fight Ophelia's assault on my business, save for the tug on hunger and addiction to caffeine that my works provide. Eyes closed, letting the light caress my skin, enjoying this brief moment before the day begins, I experience the world through smells and sounds. It's all there, the strong aroma of sugar and coffee, the tang of spices, and the hint of eggs from the breakfast sandwiches waiting to be warmed. Even the vague chemical assault of cleaning products at the horizon of the olfactory landscape is welcome. Finally, the sound I've been waiting for, as if on cue. The chimes of the Achewillow door sing the arrival of my first official customer. It's a sight most divine, pun intended. Clad in robes of white that rivals the fresh snow, fabric glowing as it catches these first rays of sunshine, Ian, head priest of the Pilvis Church, the cloud worshippers, passes the threshold. Hair a pale platinum blonde and eyes of piercing blue, he beams a smile of peace and relief. I don't see myself ever joining a cult that prays to the sky, offering up baked goods as sacrifice, but I'll take their business. Besides, the Pilvists are considered generally harmless here in Achewillow. "So good to set foot in here again," Ian says, his voice a loud whisper. He sounds like I'd expect the object of his worship might. "It's good to open." I walk around the counter, boxes in hand. My first sale of the day, and I've barely opened my doors. Ian doesn't take the croissants, however, instead raising an open palm before bringing his hands together. Then, as if summoned by his gesture, another customer walks in. Then a pair more. Then another. All clad in white, they march in, forming an ordered line in front of the counter. Even the marshals were here, waiting their turn. I mean to run back behind the register, to start taking orders, pouring drinks, and putting food on plates, but the question etched on my features cannot go unanswered. "You were missed," Ian explains, opening and raising his hands up to his chest. "This place was missed." Having said his piece, he nudges his chin to his followers. The Pilvists made a day's business within the first hours of opening. By the time they filtered out, each having had their fill of madeleines, meringues, and tea, a whole new crowd had taken their place. Pat came in, ordering a sandwich. Mayor Burns stopped in to congratulate me on the reopening. Helen Edna, notary public, stayed a few hours, waxing more philosophical than usual, talking about how she could see my hand in the cafe far more than the last time I had an opening like this. Whether the warm weather meant that Achewillow didn't wear scarves today, or the Pilvists and their goddess dispelled Ophelia's enchantment, I can't say. It may have even been the sheer power of my own efforts, baking and cooking pregnant with more intent than even her knitting could withstand. By the time Olivia and Annabelle came in, each about 15 minutes apart from the other, I was overwhelmed and overjoyed. Everything was going so well. The day had nowhere to go but down. A shadow comes as the first sign of dread. Lunch has come and gone, but the crowd gives no hint of thinning. My regulars come in at their appointed time, the joy of banality and unexpected side effect of seeing how things never really change. My closest friends, those who are available, are here too. Olivia had snuck in mid-morning, demanding coffee and biscotti. She marvels anew at how I nailed the recipe, alternating between curious nibbles and snapping off big bites soaked in coffee. Still not going to tell me who spilled the beans, are you? A steady flow of customers provides adequate cover to dodge the uncomfortable question. And while Olivia is properly distracted by the biscotti, it also serves as a constant reminder of her curiosity. In her eyes, I see a strange longing, a sadness akin to melancholy. "We talked about this. Do you really want to know?" "No," she answers, studying the biscuit as if it were an unfathomable puzzle. "But I know I don't want to keep wondering." I pour a bowl of café latte, drawing a spiral of frothy milk on the surface. As I lean over, with a smile, to give it to Luke Fallon, I offer Olivia the best answer I can. "You're right. Whatever you suspect, you're right." The vague reply is like smothering a bullet in bubble wrap, a fine intention but with unremarkable results. She sighs, putting the biscotti down on her plate. She knew. I got the secret to Doris's biscotti from Olivia's estranged daughter, a child that she was likely to never meet again if all went to plan. I know the lengths to which Olivia would go, has gone, to get her daughter back, and biscotti are a poor consolation prize for that failure. I have my own questions on that topic, but the sensitivity of the subject has kept me in check. For now. Annabelle came in during this winter in our conversation, piercing the cold between Olivia and me with the loud sunshine she drags along with her. "You're not serving the mimosas," she says, removing the bag from her shoulder before stripping off her winter coat. She's wearing denim overalls and a thick sweater, her short hair in a ponytail to better highlight her turquoise streak. I give her the silent response of a gentle tap on the small blackboard next to the register. New, mimosas, $7 each or 2 for $12. Followed by a list of 3 varieties, each specifically designed by Annabelle herself. "Sure, but no one's drinking them. You have to push product if you want to sell." Olivia watches her with an eyebrow arched high on her forehead, a blend of awe and disbelief in her eyes. "Eager, isn't she?" she says, half blame, half admiration. Annabelle digs into her defense, explaining with the confidence of an amateur all the marketing benefits of diversification. She's somewhere in the middle of detailing the advantages of a rotating catalog of different drinks when her voice starts to fade. Conversations and music, along with the sound of keyboards and cutlery on dishes, are all swallowed up. My head might as well be submerged in thick soup, with all my senses obscured except one. The shadow is cast upon the front of the Achewillow. It's smaller than a delivery truck, but it heralds the same portent. Edmund Gulliver Kemper himself stands in front of the cafe. Like a spy who's bad at his job, he peers in. There's no scarf around Gulliver's neck. The weather is too warm for that, floating perhaps a degree or 2 above 0 Celsius. His dirty gray coat is even unzipped. I should be overjoyed at his presence. The shadow announces that he'll come in, and then the whole gang will be here. It won't be like old times, but perhaps for an hour or so, the approximation will be convincing. I can't see his face, not with the sun behind him. But when I see him tug at the collar of his sweater, I know something isn't right. "Gulliver?" I mumble, hurrying around the counter and tossing my tea towel on the register. "Gulliver!" I want to catch him before he leaves. I want to reason with him. But by the time I step out into the sun, he's already gone. The pedestrians on Rue Principale turn to me with strange, worried looks. Why is the weird woman from the strange cafe bursting out like that? It's a legitimate question, one that I can only answer by awkwardly asking, "Have you tried our mimosas?" "What was that all about?" Annabelle asks once I'm back. "Gulliver," I say, sullen and distraught. "We got that." Olivia pushes her empty cup in my direction. "But what did he want?" "He wanted to come in, to have some coffee and a pile of pastries. He wanted to chat and hang out." Annabelle settles on her stool, reaches for the leftover biscotti on Olivia's dish, but has her hand slapped away for the effort. "Why didn't he then?" "Because his harpy of a girlfriend won't let him." "You're exaggerating," Annabelle says. "Gulliver's a fully grown adult. If he wanted to come in, he would have. He's probably just busy." "No," I say, pushing espresso grounds into the coffee machine's portafilter. "This is different. She did the same thing to everyone in the village yesterday, stopping them from coming into the Achewillow." "Mm-hmm," Olivia backs my claim. "I saw it. Everyone tugging at their scarves like someone's pulling at their leash. Haven't seen anything like that since '84. Since '84? The offhand comment makes me squint as if the sun were hitting me in the face. Narrowed eyes dig into Olivia while practiced hands dig into my apron. I push aside my wooden spoon to snag instead a pen and notepad. "What's this now?" she demands. "What are you doing there?" I have too many questions for you, Olivia. I'm starting a list. Annabelle finds this hilarious, but Olivia rolls her eyes like a scolded teenager. Is that necessary? Ask away if you need to know something. I scribble a few words, bullet points separating the 3 questions that linger still between Olivia and me. Each represents a step in the space that separated us for months. With a flourish, I dot the last question mark and click my pen closed. With a drop precision, I slip the pen back into my apron pocket, then slip the notepad on the counter in front of Olivia. Annabelle leans to read over her shoulder, but Olivia shoos her away like one would an over-affectionate dog. 3 fingers, each laden with rings, press on the notepad, keeping it pinned to the countertop. She may have expected the paper to flee from her gaze, judging by the intensity of her hold. She reads, then looks up, barely moving her neck. I fear for a second that I've only reopened the wound, seeping blood and pushing us apart once more. And perhaps I have, but Olivia's will isn't something that a mere slight on my part can hope to move. She flips the notepad closed, revealing the cover. It's the Achewillow logo, with its stylized tree in white on green print. An old stain of dried red sauce soils the image. Olivia puts her index on the tree and pushes the notepad back towards me. When we're alone, she says, calm and in full control, we'll talk. I put away the notepad and look around, hoping to find another customer waiting at the register. Nothing. Now, Olivia continues, get me another biscotti, but that'll have to be my last. At this rate, I'm either going to explode or my bank account is going to collapse. How much are you selling these for, anyway? I'm about to speak up, relieved that she maintains the status quo. From the corner of my eye, I can see Annabelle is a little put off by how she's kept out of the loop, something I'll remedy later. For now, my attention is drawn elsewhere. The chimes of the Achewillow sing their song, announcing the arrival of new customers. At first, I'm delighted. Familiar faces are always welcome at the Achewillow, especially those of treasured friends. As I've mentioned, however, this afternoon of the first official day of the Achewillow's grand reopening is filled with dread. Stefan is the first to pass the threshold, offering me a neutral smile, but otherwise busy holding the door for his 2 companions. It's too much to hope that he's here to get his old job back, but I'm glad he made some time to visit regardless. Before I can remember what Stefan's usual is and get to work putting it together, a second familiar face arrives. This one, a memory as distant as years ago but as recent as yesterday, I'm a little more surprised to see. Bertrand nods to Stefan on his way in, not the polite nod of a stranger thanking another stranger for a courtesy. This isn't Canadian etiquette, but rather the knowing offhand exchange of acquaintances. He walks in, drinking in the decor and atmosphere of the Achewillow with detached curiosity. There's even a hint of something professional to how he scans the dining room and counter area. His features go through an array of minute changes, the subtle twitches that suggest a brain at work. My attention can't stay on Bert for too long, though. Stefan is still holding the door for someone. A short man, about my height, perhaps my parents' age, strides in. His hair is grayish-white, shorn on the sides but styled and flowing on top. He's dressed with a black coat far too fashionable for his age, his neck hugged by a pressed afghan, and his hands protected with expensive-looking leather gloves. He looks at my cafe with the sort of vague disdain that leaves room for plausible deniability. I can imagine his thin lips part so he can say in that familiar, condescending voice of his how the Achewillow is fine, if you like that sort of thing, but he's seen better. Like a man who owns the place, or plans to, he stops in the entrance and pulls at the fingers of his gloves. I want to pretend that rage fills my veins and that I dream of jumping the counter to put my fist between his eyes, a scenario that I might have dreamt once or twice. The truth is, my blood runs cold and a primal instinct takes hold of me. My heart races, caught between the desire to run or hide. Never did I imagine that this confrontation would ever really occur. I never dared hope. I never wanted this reunion and thus never bothered preparing for it. Demons and ghosts and murderers, few compare to the resurrected trauma of seeing this man. Chef Frederick Gagnon. Achewillow is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Achewillow to donate. Achewillow has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Achewillow for details. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the username Achewillow.